We're here at the end of our year in review series, and Steve, we've got a doozy of an episode. Special teams. I mean, what a year. 10 block kicks when it was all said and done. And not on the in a good way. Not they blocked 10 kicks. 10 kicks were blocked. We had special teams single-handedly cost Nebraska a few games this season.
Mhm.
There were a handful of plays that cost Nebraska the Iowa game, but special teams, one of those handful of plays. And even across the season, you kind of wonder better play from that unit. How many different ways do certain games go? We had botched kickoff returns. We had botched punt returns were generally safe for the most part this year. Thought Isaiah Garcia Castaneda did a good job back there. I guess that's a positive for the room. But then you had, the field goal issue early in the year where just Nebraska just wasn't comfortable trying field goals just with whoever was out there. And
Mhm.
then, they had a good stretch, got a good stretch from Johnny Hull, and he played good ball, but had a few misses down the stretch as well of the season. Punts were relatively consistent. Bushini did a good job with it. But there were some snaps issues on both punts and field goals and PATs. And yeah, I guess Steve, that's the best way to kind of lay it out. I mean, yeah, where are we at with this room? Ed Foley's gone, and probably rightfully so.
Yeah, I think there just needed to be change in leadership with the special teams, and so it's not totally surprising to see Ed Foley moving on. But yeah, there were obviously some glaring needs and holes on the special team for Nebraska this offseason. But to their credit, I think they went out and patched them early, early in the offseason cycle. So with the long snappers, look, they they just weren't consistent enough, and they weren't good enough, and they cost Nebraska wins, which sucks to say, but it's what happened. So Camden Watucky, Aiden Flaggy, they weren't consistent enough. So Nebraska did something about it to try to make it better in the transfer portal, and they brought in Kevin Gallick, a transfer from New Hampshire. He's one of the better long snappers in the FCS ranks last season, so he's coming up and getting his power conference football long snapping career going. So Kevin Gallick is probably going to be your starter for a long snapper in 2025, and that's just kind of, you just had to try something, and so bringing in a new face with new blood needed to happen, and it did. Same thing with punter, with Brian Buschini moving on. Finally, it's Jack McAllister's time. So Jack McAllister, he was a 3-year starter at Washington. And what more can you ask for? Just like a veteran guy who has punted for a long time. He's been in big games at Washington, so why not bring him over and try him out? And so Jack McAllister is probably going to be your starting punter as well, and kind of like that veteran guy that a younger guy like Camden Cook underneath him can learn from and grow under. So, but then place kickers, just a field goal unit, the whole operation obviously wasn't good enough. The field goal kickers, Johnny Hall and Tristan Alvano, they combined to go 13 of 19 on the season. Alvano just seemed like he never got through that off-season groin surgery. It was a nagging injury, and it affected his ability to kick field goals. So they obviously just shut him down and went with Johnny Hole. And Johnny Hole, to his credit, he went 10 and 15 on the year, but he had a stretch of, after that awful Purdue performance on special teams, I think he went over 3. And some of that was snapping issues, obviously. But after that Purdue game, he made nine straight. I think it was 9 straight. And that ninth straight field goal make came in the Iowa game. Then he missed the other one. But again, snapping issues. The whole operation in front of him was not clean and everything. So that obviously had something to do with missed kicks as well. But I think you like what Nebraska did in the transfer portal, obviously bringing in Kevin Gallick, the long snapper, Jack McAllister, the punter, and then I think you're okay at place kicker. Johnny Hull, obviously, it was his first season, so that's good to get under his belt, and now he's going to return. You hope bigger, better. In his second season, and then we'll see what Tristan Alvano is back. I'm sure there's going to be a healthy competition with those two guys, and I think you need two field goal kickers on the in this modern day 105 man rule for the roster limits. So yeah, it's just going to be an interesting battle at place kicker. I'm sure Albano is going to come back healthy and ready to roll and fight for his job with Johnny Hole. So yeah, I mean it was a up and down, but mostly down effort on special teams for Nebraska. But I think they did well in making a change. And right now, as we're recording this, we don't know who the special teams coordinator is going to be. But once that guy is in place, I think you look at the long snapper issue, the punting, the place kicker. You know who the guys are going to be, so it's just on them now to be better than the guys before them last year.
Right, right. Beyond the kicking and punting, kind of how did you feel about kickoff coverage, kick return, punt coverage, and punt return? I kind of don't know how to feel about either right now because I think it's just kind of just a net neutral for
Yeah, I
the
think it was
most part
okay.
at this
I
point.
mean, it was
Yeah.
okay. I mean, sometimes it was good. Other times, they gave up a big return that helped the opposing offense. So it just wasn't consistent. I think, and I think consistency is a big thing when you're looking at just that third phase of the game and wanting to limit opponents in that area. It just wasn't consistent enough, and I think that's why you saw a change at the coordinator spot. But when it comes to Nebraska returning kickoffs and returning punts, I think one cool aspect of bringing in somebody like Andrew Marshall from the transfer portal, who's potentially going to be the starter opposite of Sierra Wright at corner, is his return ability as both a kickoff returner and punt returner. So adding him to the mix is really interesting because he has returned a kickoff for a touchdown in his career at Idaho, did the same thing with the punt return at Idaho. So, bringing him into the mix, somebody who has been there, done that in that area of the game and been productive, that's really cool. That's really cool. And I think that's something that he's going to get the first shot potentially just to go in there and make something happen. I talked to him over the phone about it and I liked his quote. He said it's all about the mindset. You can't be afraid back there. You just have the mindset of track the ball, catch the ball, make 11 dudes miss. And I like how simple he made that. So I'm really excited about Andrew Marshall and his impact on the team, not only on defense as a potential starting corner, but also as a returner in both kickoff and punt.
For sure. And you look ahead to 2025, and we could probably head out on this. When you look ahead to 2025, what improvement do you want to see from this unit? Do you want this unit to become a positive for the team, or do you just want them to be consistent? Like, what's realistic, I guess, in 2025?
Well, just be consistent is what I'm thinking. I don't think you need to go up there and be like the best special teams unit. Of course, that should be the goal going into it. You should have the goal of being the best whatever you're at heading into a season. But like considering where they're at, um, just consistency, just like be normal, like snap the ball well, just snap the ball well. And if everything in front of Johnny Holt or Tristan Alvano, because we know field goal kicking more than anything is like mental. So if they're not worried about everything in front of them, if the snap is clean, the protection is clean, the hold is clean, that's like what you want for being a field goal kicker. And then you do the rest. You kick the field goal. But the snap was not consistent at Nebraska. The hold, sometimes Brian Busheen was dropping the ball. So it's just the operation in front of him needs to be a lot more cleaner, a lot more efficient, and it just wasn't in 2024. So just be normal, be consistent, just be a normal like special teams unit, and I think that that's going to help win games because it's just something as simple as snapping the ball correctly and holding it could be the difference between a win and a loss. And Nebraska fans saw that in 2024, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, again, the margins are still so slim. It's like,
Yeah,
yeah, you
so
need you
small.
need anything you can get that can be clean and something that's reliable. And so, yeah, like reliable returns, reliable punt coverage and kick coverage, where you're not letting up. I think this year they were suspect for once or twice a game. Hey, like a
Yeah.
10, 15 yard return plus, where they do gain some additional
Hmm.
field positioning. And then you had, a shake punt every now and then. And you had just like little mistakes that piled up by the end of the game where it's like, okay, well, how did Nebraska lose this game? Well, it comes down to this play, this play, this play. And you look back and you count and you're like, well, a lot of this was special teams.
Hmm.
There was far too many games this year where it felt like special teams was the common denominator and why they ended up losing. So
Yeah, and
yeah,
even
that
and even in the bowl game, it's like, when you're talking about like potential special teams coordinators, just the like things like punt protection, like the shield. Like when I think back to Boston College and how they blocked that punt that got them back into the game and made a once 20-2 lead cut down all the way to 20-15 because of that blocked punt. And Boston College recovers, and one play later, it's a rushing touchdown. It's just like, you know, the whole operation just needed to be better and more just better. And other teams do it, and it's not just like a glaring weakness of them. Why can't it happen at Nebraska? Why is it always something with this program? So I think, when we're talking about Matt Rule and his offseason goals, he's shown that he can make big time hires for his coordinator roles. So we'll see with John Butler what he can do. But he brought in Dana Holgerson. He brought in just he's made other hires that have been really impressive and like, whoa, like makes you take a step back and like, wow, that was really good. So what's he going to do when he has this opportunity now with the special teams coordinator? Who's he going to bring in? It's just going to be a big deal because special teams has been such a meh like unit at Nebraska for such a long time. So I'm really interested in who this special teams coordinator hire is going to be.
Were you concerned at all? Obviously, they did make the adjustments and tried things, but were you concerned at all at the lack of a sense of urgency it felt at times to address special teams this year?
It did seem that they were like that Rule was kind of like waiting a little bit too long, right? And
Yeah, it almost felt
maybe
like they were like, "Hey, this will change because we've seen it in practice," but it wasn't
yeah.
changing.
And no, and maybe that has to do with Rule's friendship, his connection with Ed Foley, and how long they have been together and coached it. And Matt Rule has seen really great special teams units from Foley in the past. So maybe that was in the back of his head. It's like, hey, like Ed will figure it out. Ed will figure it out. But it never materialized into creating a good product on special teams at Nebraska. So maybe now that, as college football moves forward and head coaches are asked to do so much off the field and be that CEO rather than just like the hands-on X's and O's head coach, maybe we won't see this type of thing again where if somebody isn't cutting it, if one area of the program isn't cutting it, maybe a change comes sooner than it did, in Nebraska's special teams case with Ed Foley. I don't know. That's just how I'm viewing it right now.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I again, I'd like an outside hire. I'd like something aggressive here, um, for the sake of Nebraska and for the sake
Mm-hmm.
of this unit specifically. Again, we'll just have to see what Nebraska ultimately does here because again, there's some names out there, but you have to address this and beyond. Again, I think for the most part, the specialists, the kickers, punters, and even long snappers can handle themselves, but the
Mm-hmm.
kickoff, kick coverage, punt return, those units need work. Those need a coordinator over it and someone that's smart, someone that understands what they're doing, and someone that can at least keep it consistent in 2025. So that'll probably do it for us here. Appreciate you all guys tuning in to the year in review series. We hope you appreciated it and enjoy the content. We'll be back obviously with recruiting blitz over the next few weeks. We'll have some reaction to some news through the transfer portal and so on and so forth as well. So stay tuned for all of that. As we get closer to spring ball, I'm sure we'll fire up some type of mini series as well to just look ahead and preview spring ball, what we're looking for, biggest storylines, and there's so much more that's going to happen here in the next few weeks leading up to spring ball. So stay tuned for all of that. We'll be flying through January and February and into spring ball before you know it. So stay tuned for all of our content over at InsideNebraska.com and the Inside Nebraska YouTube channel. Be sure to like this video and subscribe, and we will be back next time.